Just before we leave Skelton completely, have you seen enough in these two tests to suggest that he has to be in the starting 15 against the Lions next year? And we've spoken about it previously around how that upsets kind of the balance. You were just talking about it before, the loss of a more athletic, potentially line-out jumper is probably the best way to describe it, how that just upsets the set piece there, which is offset by the power you get on the right-hand side, the tight head side of the scrum, particularly behind a Taniela Tupou. And we really haven't seen that because Tupou missed the Wales game as well. So we remember how well it worked in, I think, 2 tests last year. The warm-up game against France and then against Georgia, of course, as well. So, I mean, clearly, there's value in bringing him back and having him in that group next year. It will be a fairly short turnaround after an exhaustive top 14 and Champions Cup season with La Rochelle, who you would fully expect to go deep into both two-time defending champions and the Champions Cup. So it's one that's probably going to be, keeping Joe Schmidt up at night. I don't think bringing him back, but that selection of, okay, well, do I want to trade off a bit of defensive maul prowess and that ability to really drive the Wallabies' own maul forward from those 5-metre line-out opportunities and just the power of winning those contacts just on those short carries that he does so well, sort of either off 9 or even off 10 against, it could, cost us maybe 2, 3, 4 line-out throws a game. Is that effectively what that decision boils down to?
Oh, look, the line-out operated really well a week earlier, didn't it? So why was that? I think it's probably two things. A hooker who's really found his feet on the international stage, and Matt Fesler does the basics so well. His core roles really well. And also Sarah Uru was at 6. You've got a taller line-out, really good line-out operator there as well. So to answer your question, firstly, absolutely, Will Skelton is in your side, in your 23 to take on the Lions every day of the week. And I think we've seen that. The top 14 final, I'm pretty sure, is June 28. That'll be the last game in France that a French club is involved with next year. So that means it's 3 weeks before the Lions. That's enough time to come back, to be adjusted, probably have a few days off, and then you're going to be back firmly amongst it with the Wallabies preparation. He didn't feature, did he, in the Lions 12 years ago or so for the Wallabies anyway. I think he was there with the Tars. But I think just as interestingly would be, what does it do to the back row? And I wonder whether or not Joe Schmidt's just painted himself, a little bit of a corner by going with Harry Wilson as captain rather than Alan Alaalatoa. I just think that it was a simpler solution, that if there's anything about the back row where you want to be creative going forward, I think it would look very unusual if you don't have Harry Wilson starting regularly now, because he's just been named the preferred first choice number captain. So I really liked a week earlier how it looked when you had Skelton there. I just thought the balance was great. And, it was Nick Frost, who's got a great combination with Skelton. They've managed to build that over the last 16 months or so with last year's World Cup campaign, even though Skelton didn't feature in the last 3 tests of the pool stage. So that's an interesting one going forward. If Skelton starts, what do you do in the back row? And if he comes off the bench, well, there's probably a bit more flexibility with who you start. But it did look very good a week earlier, didn't it, against Wales?
Certainly did. And, you consider his body of work and the rare times he has played for Australia, thinking back to the Dave Rennie spring tours and some other exposure in the past, that he certainly does make an impact